Well, guess what? Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Hype Mind. I'm Bear.
What's up? And I'm Daniel.
Oh, dude, we're doing leather jackets. Oh man, shoot. Hang on.
Go grab yours real quick. All right, anyways, we'll take it from here. Today, what we're actually talking about is parenting. How do you parent your children? How do you become a good parent? Not a bad one, a good one. Now,
A
this
great
goes
one.
into a lot because you could be parenting at very different age. Like your children could be infants, whatever. They could be in middle school, high school. They could be teenagers, or you could be parenting children that have moved out. Like you're still an influence in their life.
You're
So
always an influence in our life.
exactly. So there's different stages,
Well,
and
and another big distinction to make, um, right? The question that always comes up is, "Am I being a good parent?" Right? I think that's every parent's biggest fear is, "Am I good enough? Am I doing a good job parenting? I don't want to fuck up as a parent." Right? And so that's what we're here to address.
mhm. And I think what one big thing comes down to you as a person. It's like if you are a I hate good person. It's just saying good person. But if you are, I guess, discipline yourself and you
Uh-oh.
take care of yourself, you're likely to be proficient in or pretty proficient in mostly any role you take up in your life, whether that's working a certain career, whether that's parenting children, whatever that is, as long as you're taking care of yourself, as long as you're saying discipline and really just taking the work seriously, you'll already be a step ahead, basically.
Yeah.
But one thing is leading by example. If you're a parent, it's probably the biggest thing to do. Your children are going to emulate you. They look up to you, you're their influence. It doesn't matter if they like you, they hate you. What's happening when they're growing up is they're watching you. So imagine them being you and living the life you're living now. Is that a life you want your children to be living, the life you're living currently? So, what if you could live the life that you want your children to live now, have them see that so they can follow that example?
Well, and that's what you hear is you hear people say, "Oh, you're just like your dad. Oh, you're just like your mother. Oh, you're just like, one of your parents," right? And people are like, "No, I'm not," right?
Yeah,
But they are, right? Because
that's
everybody sees it but you as a person. And that's, the whole what you want your children to be, that's you have to act it out first is really important because interestingly enough, I've been learning a lot about how up until you're about 7 as a child you're in theta mode, your brain is in theta mode, right? So all you do is see and learn, and that's it, right? You don't process, you don't have any vetting system, you just see it and you take it in. So when people get angry, you say, "Oh, hitting things, smacking people is an appropriate response to being angry at someone," right? Or being angry is an appropriate response to someone communicating with you, etc. So you have to be very careful, and be very conscious of your actions in front of your children because they see it and they interpret it their own way, right? And so that's, of course, that's where a lot of the pressure comes from, when you're a parent, because you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I just lost my temper," like, and my kid saw that, and that's not what I want my kid to see, so it's like, okay, well, that's going to happen too, and that's fine because you're human, right? But now you just need to own it, right? Now um, the corrective strategy and the right place to come from is owning
mm,
and saying, "Hey, let me take my kid aside and say, I got angry, and people are going to get angry, and that wasn't okay, and I'm going to apologize, and I'm going to correct what I did wrong." And that way, at least if you make a mistake, you can teach your child to own their mistake and to correct it, um, because it's all going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck up. You're not going to be a perfect parent, right? So then there's still ways to correct that down the line. But
yeah.
ultimately, that, you know, your kids are watching everything you do. They see everything you do,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
if you're not taking care of yourself, don't expect your kids to be able to
Right.
take care of themselves. I think that's big too.
And
If
that's so
you're a
subtle too.
workaholic, you're, always on the go, not getting enough rest, not feeding yourself properly. Kids are gonna see that.
Yeah.
Gonna probably live like that, you know.
And
So,
it's really subtle, really, really subtle. Because you sit there and you think, well, I'm doing a good job. I'm working hard to provide for my family, right? But your kids can interpret the amount of stress that you're taking on yourself. And guess what? They see that as something they're supposed to do and emulate.
yeah.
Oh, my father works incredibly hard, right? Well, that's awesome, right? There's no I'm not here to burn you for working hard, right? But your children see that. They see that you don't know how to take a break. They see that you spend your entire day stressed out, So you just have to be very conscious and aware of yourself
Hmm.
and all your needs, right? Not just being the provider or not, or, the same thing can go for a mother, working really hard to keep the house clean and whatnot. And like, and the same thing, if your mother's stressed out all day, your kid sees that. Your kid says, wow, mom's always stressed. This is an okay state to live in. Not, right? But we don't think about that.
Hmm. Another thing I want to address that's I think is super important is as a parent trusting your instincts. I think there's a lot of judgment being a parent. Oh, you have to do things a certain way, blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
it's like what happens is, I mean, you're taking care of these kids that you love, that you care for. You forget about yourself. You forget about your own instincts of what's like safe or not. So you'll let your kids get away with things that you don't think is okay, but you're pressured by what other people think, right? Maybe even your kids, where you don't trust your own instincts. And I mean, I've seen this in even parents who might not be qualified as good parents. Like I knew this girl who I took a couple classes with, and she did not take care of herself. She was not good to herself. She was out late partying and stuff like that, but she had children. And I remember her talking to someone else, another mom, about her kids and stuff like that. And she's like, "No, I would never let my kids do that." When she's living this kind of life that, she's saying she wouldn't let her kids do it. So in the end, like even though she wasn't living a good life, she still had good instincts, right? To
But she
know
wasn't
what was
even listening.
good for her kids and not. And it was kind of, at first it was kind of shocking, but it makes sense. Someone talks about, I forget who it was, but how we take care of our pets better than we take care of ourselves. Like we'll
Yeah, I
know
said
what
that.
was it you? Maybe it was Andrew who said you'll take care of your pets and then you'll take care of yourselves. So trust your instincts. And it's like, I've seen this so many times where it's like, if you think your kids shouldn't be out late, tell them no. They're not allowed to be out late. Like lay down the law, and that's okay to do. And hey, if they go behind your back, that's fine. But at least you were authentic and true to your own instincts that that's not safe. It's not okay. Don't because your kids can guilt trip you, especially if they're teenagers too. And like I said in the beginning, there's always different stages of parenting, right? This is a different stage. If you're dealing with a teenager who's staying out late, who's doing different things, be able to trust your instincts and say, no, I'm not okay with that. Now, not saying that, you're going to lock your children up, but like if they go and sneak behind your back, that's on them, and of course that not taking it all personally and taking it in a way that, and guilting yourself. Like if your children aren't listening, don't let that ruin your whole day or your whole experience of being a parent, right? That's how children can be. But at least you're true to yourself and you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big
Yeah.
thing, trusting your instinct. If you
That's
ever be in a situation where you just don't trust your instinct because you feel bad or you're questioning whether you're a good parent or not, it's like, no, trust your instincts. Even even if it's not gonna like even even if they're not gonna like it, your kids, because that's your job and your role as a parent. Is protect, provide, guide your kids to become the best people they can.
Yeah. Well, that still comes from doing that yourself, like you were talking about in the beginning, because you know you don't want your kids to act one way, but you're doing it. I mean, staying up late's a different subject. Your kids have a curfew. You don't need a curfew. You're an adult, but still being able to set your own boundaries, right? I think that's the big thing is if you can't be authentic, um you can't do what you're telling your kids to do. Oh, you guys got to eat healthy, but you're always, in the cookie jar. Um,
Right.
all those kinds of things. If you can't do that,
That's true. That's a good point.
you're asking a lot from your children because
Lead by example,
remember they're
like you said in the
kids,
beginning.
they're children, and they are, you know, for, they're not as mature, so to speak, as you are, right? So if you think you can ask something from them and demand it and expect it, and they'll perform it, but you can't do it yourself. I mean, like, come on, they're still maturing and growing themselves. And, they're seeing someone who they look up to as a mature, developed, I want to be there someday adult who can't do that either. So,
Yeah.
you have to think about that, like your friend in class there who parties every night, but doesn't think her child's going to do that. She's gonna emulate her mother in that case. Um, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, that's huge. Like, don't you you're not you can't control your kids, but you can influence them.
Well, and that's something I really wanted to touch on, right? The first thing is be compassionate with yourself as a parent, right? Because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to realize you made mistakes until after you made them, maybe even after your kids made them because you made them. But showing things like forgiveness towards yourself, self-care, self-love, right? Those are the subtle things your kids are going to pick up on. They're going to see that when you make a mistake, you do forgive yourself and you don't drag yourself over coals for making a mistake. They're going to see that when you get sick, you take the time to take care of yourself and you stay home from work and you eat well. They're going to see that when you're doing well in life, you continue to take care of yourself. Oh man, I made $1 million today, but I'm still going to the gym. Still got to get my workout in. I do it every day. Or I had the best day ever of spending time with my family today, but that doesn't mean we're going to go home and eat cookies and ice cream all night for dinner. Like because you had a good day doesn't give you an excuse to slack, and because you have a bad day doesn't give you an excuse to slack, right? And so those are the really deep lessons that help your kids make better decisions. When they're faced with them, when their peers are like, "Hey, we're going to a party and getting drunk," they're like, "On my parents' best day and on my parents' worst day, they do what's right for themselves. So you know what? I don't need to get wasted tonight, right?" Like, and it sounds funny, but that's that that's the thing is those decisions you make in tough moments and in easy moments as a parent are the decisions your child's going to learn how to make in tough moments and easy moments themselves, regardless of peer pressure. So, but the forgiveness is a big one. I mean, if you're not able to acknowledge your mistakes, and if you're not able to forgive yourself for your mistakes, your kids aren't going to acknowledge their mistakes, and your kids aren't going to forgive themselves for their mistakes. And so it'll get ugly.
Yeah. So be who you need to be, or be who you want your children to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we say that, and that sounds so easy, but like a lot of times we don't realize we're not being who we want to be. So
Yeah. I
it
think
really it comes down to taking that time to reflect. Like you want to be a good parent, then you need to spend some time reflecting on who you want to be. Because if you don't know who you want to be, how are you supposed to show your kids who to be?
right. Yeah, I think it's counterintuitive. It's like it's like, all right, how do you be a better parent? Stop taking care of your kids, but take care of yourself. So you can
Let's
show your kids how to
let's chat
be
about
a
what
good person, and that's how you influence them. That's how you help them versus trying to control whether they are or not.
yeah. Well, that's a big one too. Is There's things within your control and there's things not within your control. And, your kid's curfew is within your control, setting that. But like
Not
when
really.
your kids go,
Hmm.
well, not completely, but to some degree it is,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you have the right as a parent to set a curfew for your kid. So that is in your control. If they don't listen, well, that you can't force them to listen.
Right.
But like to some degree, it's within your
That's the
control.
thing. You don't
You're
need to. It's
you're,
like
you're able to
yeah,
set a curfew for them. But
absolutely.
like
You do your
if your
job.
kids if your kids go out and play with their friends, you don't know if their friends are going to teach them to run over toads in the road or smoke weed. Like that's not in your control, right? Your place as a parent is to be be compassionate and understanding and be like, look, this is what I would want. I don't do this. I don't want you to do this. If you do it, you know, like
If you
people
do it,
always
you did it. I did not teach you to do it.
right. If well, yeah,
Detaching yourself from
separation.
that.
The separation is good. The separation that they are their own individual is very important because it teaches them to act as an individual, right? And the idea of taking responsibility for it is very important. But if someone was like, okay, how would you make sure your kid didn't do drugs, right? I'd be like, little Johnny, come here. I'm your dad. I don't do cocaine. I don't do cocaine, right? I don't want you to do cocaine. But if you're going to go out and try things with your friends, I'd rather you tell me and be honest and open and know I'm not going to judge you for doing that and know that I'm not going to punish you. It's your life, right? I'm going to tell you don't do cocaine. I'm going to tell you don't do cocaine in my house, right? But if you go out and do cocaine with your friends, that you have that right and that choice. And I want you to know that as a child becoming an adult, this is like a conversation I'd have with my teenager. You have the right to make your own decisions, and I'm giving you permission to make your own decisions. And I'm telling you based on my own wisdom. I don't think doing cocaine with your friends is a wise decision,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? But I'm not forcing my child to do anything because when I grew up, my father was always like, "You're not allowed to smoke weed," and I was like, "Guess what, motherfucker? I'm gonna smoke weed." So it's doesn't
No,
work.
that's great right there. You you basically by doing that, you make them
A
able
creator.
to able to come to you as a guide, as and able to not be
Well,
afraid
that too.
of,
Yeah,
of sharing those things and really, because that's the last thing I think you want to do as someone who you're raising and trying to influence, someone who's going to be afraid to come to you about certain things when you're there to help. So that approach is opening, it's loving, it's not,
your children,
yeah, you're not going to
right?
restrict them
But a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I want to empower my children," oh boy, am I cutting out?
a lot, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
I can still hear you.
Okay, cool. People are like, oh yeah, I empower my children when they're playing little league. I cheer them on. Like that's not empowerment, right? Like you want to truly empower your children, give them the decision to make responsible choices, right? Now that doesn't mean you just throw away your boundaries, right? That means you keep your boundaries. Like I said, Johnny, you're not allowed to do cocaine in my yard, but you do have the right. I'm as a parent, I'm telling you, you have the right to make your own decisions. Especially when you're not with adult supervision and you're with your friends. It's within your power, right? So a lot of times people kind of do these superficial empowerment moves where it's like, oh yeah, it's something that they're comfortable giving power to their children for. It's really not empowering unless you're uncomfortable handing that power to your children. Not that I think you should give them a car when they're 10, but you know,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just reinforces letting go of what's not in your control. Like if they're out with their friends doing drugs, you cannot be there. And and exactly, they're doing it when you're not there. So you cannot control that situation. So you let go of that
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
out of your hands. But that's
right.
like but you have control of what happens in your yard. And I think the same thing. I think what's huge with, just even even the modesty that's today. Most fathers wouldn't let their daughters walk out the door the way they're dressed. And so you can say, and you can be real firm about how you want your daughters to be dressed. And they can go somewhere and change if they want, but not in your house. And that you have the right to say that. And you have, as a parent, that your responsibility is to protect them as much, it's reinforcing following your instincts. Like, this is what you think is right, so follow it. But they can,
Shoot.
yeah, they can go behind your back if they want, but that's on them. But what you have going on in your house is on you. Look at that. It's just me on here. I think Andrew's cut out of this, so I have to continue the rest. See if he pops back on. He should. Anyways, let's see. A couple things to reinforce about raising children is just not understanding rather than trying to be understood. And this comes actually from a prayer that I used to pray. I think it's from maybe St. Anthony, but it was, wish I could recite it right now. But seek to understand rather than to be understood. Same thing with your children. It's like you,
St. Francis.
yes. Oh, St. Francis, not St. Anthony. Yeah. Your kids
Yeah.
want to be understood.
Right. Love.
Yeah. And they could have a different point of view than you. It's perfectly fine. That you're there, you're understanding them. And this goes back to what Andrew said too. They're not afraid to be able to be honest with you and tell you what's going on. And to, if they need to, seek guidance from you. They're not afraid to share these things. And so with your children, seek to be understood. And of course, spend time with them. Of course, play with them, hang out with them. Doesn't mean spend your entire day with them, but a little bit. And make that a priority, that you're spending time with them. When someone grows up and they don't have their parents in their life, it's like something's missing. When you're there, you fill that role of being an influence.
I want to jump over to the idea we heard right on Pines with Aquinas, where he was chatting with that fellow about the day of basically repentance in his family, right? You kind of brought this up earlier where you were like, yeah, you want to be someone, as a parent, you want to be someone who your kids can come to with anything, right? I mean, isn't that what every parent would want if you asked them? They would say, oh, I would want my kid to be able to come to me with all their problems and all their wrongdoings, right? But your kid doesn't, right? And there's a reason they don't, because they learned that they can't. Somewhere along the line, you taught them as their parent that if they show up to you, you would react poorly if they told you that they actually ate the tub of ice cream in the fridge and broke your truck window and all this other stuff. But yeah, I don't remember what they called it, but
it's the Day of Jubilee. That's what it's called.
The Day of Jubilee. Yes, that's what they call it. Yeah, Google that, Day of Jubilee. Matt Frad talks about it on his show. But it's a great concept, right? You want to dive into what happens there?
Yeah, basically you have this day, 24 hours, where you tell your kids, you can come to me with anything and everything that you feel like you've done wrong, and I won't react, I won't get mad, but you'll be basically forgiven, pardoned for it.
Yeah.
And you get to bring it to me.
Yeah. You'll rather, on the important note, you won't be judged and you will be loved, right? And that's super tough because, I know it when I was a kid, when I made mistakes, I was like, man, if I share this, I'm going to get beaten, and I'm going to get not actually beaten, but, I'm going to get a wooden spoon to the butt cheek, and, I'm going to get judged for doing this because it was wrong, because I knew it was wrong. And I'm not going to experience love in that moment, right? And so, and it's great. I encourage you guys to watch it. But he was like even my kids were like doubtful, right? But they did it, and now we do it every year. And now sometimes we do it a couple times a year. And I was like, wow, that's amazing, right? Because that just teaches your kids that it's okay to own their problems. And more than that, it's okay to own their problems to you guys as their parents, because you as their parents will accept them regardless, right? And that's really tough. I can say that's tough in my life personally, right? Feeling accepted despite who I am, right? Regardless of who I am, and I know a lot of kids suffer is a good word too with that, and I know there's things same has gone for me, where there's things I'm like, oh, my parents wouldn't accept me if they knew this. um, I was actually talking to a friend, and we knew someone. I grew up, went to school with her, right? She was gay, right? So, but most of her family didn't know this because her family wouldn't accept her, right? And so it's like, how do you be a good parent? It's like you accept your child for who they are. That's what they want you to do, right? Especially considering you kind of made them who they are, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow as a parent, because it's a reflection of who you are. But and that's another subject, because that's why relationships are so hard. It's a reflection of yourself. But but yeah, she was like, oh, I never told my parents this. It was getting really awkward, yada yada yada, right? It's like, because there's all this shame. You can't be yourself in front of your family. And so as a parent, you sit there and go, oh, I want my children to be themselves. But you don't really mean that a lot of times. You say that, but they know you don't mean that. Or you've never done anything to show them that you do mean that. You've done the opposite oftentimes. So, and it's not too late to start this. It's not too late to say, oh my gosh, I can today be a more accepting parent. I can today say, oh, my kid is gay. My kid struggles with this. My kid has done crimes. My kid does drugs, right? That's okay. They're still my child, and I love them for that, right? And so it's not too late to be like, it doesn't matter who you are. Show me who you are. I'll accept you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And without having that expectation too, that they will. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things is just the parents, their own expectations on their kids. Oh, I expect
Yeah,
it to be this way, to be that way. And when they're not, like it's like you want to love your kids unconditionally. But somehow conditional love gets thrown in there where it's like, oh, okay, my kids have to perform to be loved or whatever. Or like that's how it's misinterpreted as a child, is you feel like your parents have conditional love for you. Even though you as a parent, you want them to do as good as they can as possible in life. But you do love them unconditionally. You want to show them that you love them unconditionally. And they don't have to perform to be approved of your love.
yeah,
And that's freedom right there. They get to go out there and fail and be themselves and come back home and you'll still love them and accept them. And they're not living in the state of fear
right. They're
because
allowed to make
they
their
feel
own
like you
choices.
don't. Yeah. They feel like they have to be a certain way and they can't be them real selves, which that's how you want to love them, as their real, true selves. All right.
Yeah,
We're about to
yeah.
finish.
We're gonna wrap up here, but you just brought up an excellent point. I always chuckle at the people who are like, my kid ran away from home. It's like, what about home was worth running away from? What part of home, if they wanted to go adventure, and you're not for that. Oh, you can't move out of my house. You're not old enough yet. You're not, right. Well, that's an insult. You're not old enough yet. That just says you're not mature enough or responsible enough. Or they want to leave the house because the house is too chaotic. Why is the house too chaotic? What kind of home are you creating? But but yeah, it starts with reflection on who you want to be as a person and as a parent, and that gets transferred over.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.